Have you ever loved someone so deeply that even after they broke your heart, a part of you still remembered the version of them that once made you feel safe? What would you do if the person who promised to love you forever became the very person who shattered your world? And what if, years later, that same person invited you back into their life, not to apologize, not to make peace, but to humiliate you? Would you ignore the invitation, or would you show up, stronger than they ever imagined? Tonight's story is about love, heartbreak, betrayal, and the quiet strength that comes from rebuilding yourself after someone makes you feel unworthy. It's about how success can inflate pride, how silence can destroy marriages, and how sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's healing. Daniel Hawthorne was the kind of man people admired the second he walked into a room. Powerful, intelligent, ruthless. He built one of the biggest corporate empires in Chicago. People called him brilliant. They called him unstoppable. But behind the expensive suits, polished speeches, and billion-dollar deals was a man who had lost something money could never buy back. Her, Ava Bennett Hawthorne, the woman who once loved him when he had nothing. The woman who stood beside him before the fame, before the power, before success, changed him into someone even she no longer recognized. 3 years ago, Daniel destroyed their marriage. 3 years ago, he walked away believing Ava needed him more than he needed her. He believed she would struggle without him. He believed she would eventually regret losing the life he gave her. Most dangerously, he believed he still understood her. But Daniel was wrong, terribly wrong. Because while he was busy building an empire, Ava was rebuilding something far more valuable: herself. And when Daniel invited his ex-wife to Hawthorne Global's 25th anniversary gala, he thought he was in control. He thought the invitation would remind Ava of everything she had lost: the luxury, the status, the life she once had. But Daniel made one fatal mistake. He assumed Ava was still the broken woman he left behind. He had no idea that the woman walking into that ballroom would challenge everything he believed about power, love, and loss. He had no idea that before the night ended, painful truths would surface. Truths he spent years avoiding. Truths that would shake him. Truths that would force him to confront the cost of his ambition. And by the end of the night, the CEO who planned to humiliate his ex-wife would become the one facing the deepest humiliation of all. The humiliation of realizing he was the one who lost everything. Welcome back to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson, where every story brings powerful lessons about love, heartbreak, healing, and second chances. If you enjoy emotional stories that touch your heart and leave you with meaningful life lessons, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another unforgettable story. And tell me in the comments, if your ex invited you to a glamorous event after breaking your heart, would you go? Or would you ignore them completely? Now, sit back, relax, and let's begin. Every Sunday morning at exactly 7:30, Ava Bennett ironed clothes she didn't need. It had become a ritual so strange that even she couldn't fully explain it. Sometimes it was a blouse she had already worn that week. Sometimes it was a dress hanging untouched in her closet. Sometimes it was just a plain cotton shirt. The clothes didn't matter. The routine did. Steam hissed softly as the iron moved over pale blue fabric. Smooth, press, lift, repeat. There was something comforting about watching wrinkles disappear beneath heat and pressure. It made life feel simple, manageable, predictable, unlike love, unlike memory, unlike grief. Sunlight poured through the kitchen windows of her quiet condo in downtown Chicago, warming the wooden floor. The city outside was slowly waking. Cars moved. Coffee shops opened. People started their routines. But inside Ava's home, everything felt calm, peaceful, controlled. That word mattered to her now. Control. She valued it in a way she never had before. Because once upon a time, Ava had built her life around someone else. Someone whose moods dictated the atmosphere of every room. Someone whose love had once felt like safety. Until it became silence. Her phone buzzed against the kitchen counter. A text from Nina. Brunch today? 1 p.m. Don't cancel this time. Ava smiled faintly. Nina had been her closest friend for nearly 15 years. Loyal, blunt, protective. The kind of friend who could comfort you and scold you in the same sentence. Ava typed back, I won't cancel. Promise. Almost immediately, Nina replied, I'm screenshotting this. Ava laughed softly. It felt good. Real laughter had become easier these days. Not effortless, but easier. That mattered. Healing, she had learned, rarely happened in dramatic moments. It happened quietly, in small choices. Getting out of bed, answering texts, cooking real meals, sleeping without crying, smiling without forcing it. Little victories. Tiny miracles. Ava turned off the iron and carefully folded the blouse. Then she froze. Her eyes drifted toward a framed photo on a shelf across the room. She hadn't moved it. Hadn't thrown it away, either. It was old. Taken 9 years ago. She and Daniel stood on a rooftop in Chicago, laughing about something she could no longer remember. He was looking at her. Not the camera. Just her. Like she was the only thing in the world worth seeing. A sharp ache settled in her chest. Funny how memory worked. Sometimes it protected you. Sometimes it betrayed you. Sometimes it carefully edited pain and left behind only the warmth, making you question everything. Had he really loved her like that? Or had she simply loved him enough for both of them? Her gaze lingered. Then she whispered words she hadn't said in months. "Why did you change?" Silence answered. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Ava frowned. She nearly ignored it. Nearly. But something in her chest tightened. Slowly, she reached for the phone and answered. "Hello?" A polished female voice greeted her. "Good morning. May I speak with Ava Bennett? This is she." "Miss Bennett, I'm calling from Hawthorne Global Enterprises on behalf of Mr. Daniel Hawthorne." Everything inside Ava went still. No movement, no sound, nothing. Even her breathing seemed to stop. Daniel. 3 years. 3 years since their divorce. 3 years since she last heard his voice. 3 years since she stopped being Ava Hawthorne. Her fingers tightened around the phone. The woman continued. "Mr. Hawthorne has requested that I personally extend an invitation to you." Ava's voice turned cold. "For what?" A brief pause. Then, "For Hawthorne Global's 25th anniversary gala this Saturday evening." Ava said nothing. Her heartbeat slowed, not from calm, from shock, from disbelief, from old pain rushing back like floodwater. Finally, she spoke. "I'm sorry, what?" The woman repeated herself. Formal, professional, unemotional. As if she had no idea what this invitation meant. As if this was normal. As if Daniel inviting his ex-wife to a high-profile public gala was completely ordinary. Ava's grip tightened. "Why?" Another pause. Then the answer came. "Mr. Hawthorne specifically requested your attendance." Silence. Ava laughed. Once. Cold, sharp, disbelieving. "You've got to be kidding me." "No, ma'am." Her pulse thundered now. Why? Why now? Why after 3 years? What game was Daniel playing? Because Daniel Hawthorne never acted without purpose. Never. And Ava knew that better than anyone. The old knot of anxiety twisted in her stomach. The same feeling she used to get before difficult conversations with him. Before fights. Before disappointment. Before silence. She hated that her body still remembered him. She hated that his name could still do this. Her voice hardened. "Tell Mr. Hawthorne I'm not interested." Then the assistant said something unexpected. "Ms. Bennett. He told me you might say that." Ava frowned. "What?" The woman hesitated, then spoke carefully. "He asked me to tell you this." A pause. Then, "He said if you refuse, he'll understand. But he hopes, just this once, you'll find the courage to stop running." Ava froze. Every muscle locked. Her expression changed instantly. Shock. Then anger. Pure anger. "Running? Running?" Her voice dropped dangerously low. "He said that?" "Yes, ma'am." Ava's jaw tightened. Something hot burned in her chest now. Not pain. Not sadness. Anger. Because Daniel always did this. Even now. Even after years. He knew exactly which words to use. Exactly where to strike. Exactly how to provoke her. He knew her deepest wounds. And, somehow, he still knew how to reach them. Ava ended the call without another word. The silence that followed felt deafening. Her kitchen suddenly felt smaller. The peaceful morning she had carefully built now lay in pieces around her. She placed the phone on the counter and gripped its edge tightly. Breathe. In, out, slowly. But her mind was already spiraling. Daniel's words echoed like poison. Find the courage to stop running. She laughed bitterly. Running? Was that what he thought? That she left because she was weak? That she walked away because she couldn't handle life without him? The audacity. 3 years. 3 whole years, without a single word. No apology, no explanation, nothing. And now he wanted to provoke her with one carefully chosen sentence. Classic Daniel. Still strategic. Still calculating. Still arrogant. Ava walked toward the window and folded her arms tightly. Chicago stretched before her. Busy, loud, alive. Yet all she could see were memories. Daniel standing in expensive suits by floor-to-ceiling windows. Taking calls. Making deals. Winning. Always winning. At least, that's what it looked like. But Ava knew the version of Daniel no one else saw. The man beneath the power. The man who woke at 3 a.m. with anxiety he refused to name. The man who carried childhood wounds behind ambition. The man who feared failure so deeply that success became his only language. And somewhere along the way, that fear consumed everything, including them. Her phone buzzed again. Nina. Ava answered immediately. Nina spoke first. Okay, why do you sound like you're either about to scream or commit arson? Despite everything, Ava almost smiled. Nina. That was all it took. Nina's voice softened instantly. What happened? Ava swallowed, then said the words slowly, like speaking them aloud would somehow make them less absurd. Daniel invited me to his company gala. Silence. Then, he did what? Ava let out a humorless laugh. Exactly. Nina's voice sharpened. Why? I don't know. Did he call you? No. His assistant. That's worse. Ava rubbed her forehead. He specifically requested me. Nina was quiet for a moment. Then, this smells bad. Ava sighed. I know. Nina asked carefully, what exactly did they say? Ava hesitated, then repeated the line. Nina exploded. Oh, absolutely not. Ava closed her eyes. That's what I said. No. That man does not get to disappear for 3 years and then come back acting like you're the one running. Ava said nothing, because that was the problem. Daniel's words hit harder than she wanted to admit. Not because he was right, but because part of her wondered if maybe he believed it. Maybe Daniel truly thought she abandoned them. Maybe after everything, he still didn't understand what happened. That thought hurt more than anger. Nina's voice softened. You're thinking too much. Ava exhaled. I just don't understand what he wants. Nina didn't hesitate. Control. Ava frowned. What? Nina spoke carefully. Men like Daniel hate uncertainty. Ava listened. They hate not knowing where they stand. Nina continued. For 3 years he hasn't known your life. He hasn't known how you feel. He hasn't known whether you're broken, thriving, dating, struggling. A pause. This invitation may not be about humiliation. Ava stared outside. Then what is it? Nina's answer came quietly. He wants to see what's left. Those words lingered. What's left? Ava swallowed hard. Because beneath the anger, beneath the confusion, sat a truth she hated admitting. Daniel still mattered. Not in the same way. Not with the same power. But he mattered. Some scars don't disappear. They fade. They heal. But they leave traces. Nina interrupted her thoughts. So, are you going? Ava answered immediately. No. Too fast. Too certain. Nina noticed. Are you sure? Yes. Really? Yes. Nina sighed. Okay. But Ava knew Nina too well. That okay meant, I don't believe you. After hanging up, Ava spent the next 2 hours trying to reclaim her morning. She made coffee, did laundry, checked emails, read. Nothing worked. Her thoughts kept circling back. Daniel, the gala, the invitation, that sentence. Stop running. By evening, frustration had settled into exhaustion. She stood in front of her bedroom mirror, 36 years old, older, wiser, stronger. She studied herself. The woman staring back no longer looked like the broken version Daniel last saw. That woman had cried herself to sleep. That woman blamed herself. That woman questioned her worth. This woman had rebuilt, piece by piece, through therapy, through tears, through brutal honesty, through choosing herself again and again. She had worked hard for this peace. So why did one invitation shake her this much? Because it wasn't about the gala. It was never about the gala. It was about unfinished pain, unanswered questions, words never spoken, truths never confronted. That night, sleep came late. And when it came, memory followed. She dreamed of Daniel. Not CEO Daniel. Not the polished man from magazine covers. The old Daniel. The younger version. The one who used to make pancakes on Sunday mornings. The one who danced terribly in the kitchen. The one who kissed her forehead absent-mindedly while reading emails. The version she loved most. She woke at 2:14 a.m., breathing hard. Eyes wet. She stared into darkness. Then, whispered words that surprised even her. What do you want from me, Daniel? No answer came. Only silence. Morning arrived too quickly. By noon, Ava sat across from Nina at their favorite brunch spot. Nina watched her carefully. You didn't sleep. Ava stabbed at her salad. Clearly. Nina leaned forward. Say the real thing. Ava frowned. What? Nina's gaze was direct. What are you actually afraid of? Ava looked down. Silence stretched. Then, finally, her voice cracked. I'm afraid seeing him will undo everything. Nina's expression softened. Ava continued quietly. I worked so hard to heal. Her eyes glistened. So hard. Nina reached across the table and squeezed her hand. Ava swallowed. What if one conversation brings everything back? Nina held her gaze. Then she said something Ava needed to hear. He only has power if you give it to him. Ava said nothing. Nina squeezed her hand again. You're not the same woman anymore. Those words landed deeply. Because they were true. Ava wasn't the same. Not even close. Nina smiled slightly. Maybe this isn't about him. Ava frowned. What do you mean? Nina leaned back. Maybe this is about you finding out just how healed you really are. Silence. Then, something shifted inside Ava. Small, quiet, but real. Not anger, not fear. Something steadier. Resolve. That evening, Ava opened the invitation email again. Elegant. Cold. Formal. She stared at it for nearly a minute. Then, she reached for her phone. Her fingers moved before doubt could stop them. She typed a short reply. Simple. Direct. Dangerous. Tell Mr. Hawthorne I'll be there. She stared at the message. Her pulse quickened. No taking it back now. Then, she hit send. A few seconds later, a reply came. We look forward to seeing you, Miss Bennett. Ava locked her phone, then whispered to the empty room. No, Daniel. Her eyes hardened. I'm not running. And, somewhere across Chicago, in a glass office high above the city, Daniel Hawthorne stared at his phone as a slow, unreadable expression crossed his face. His assistant stood nearby. She accepted. Daniel looked out over the skyline. Silent. Still. Then he said quietly, I know. The assistant hesitated. Should I finalize arrangements? Daniel's gaze remained fixed on the city below. His voice came low. Controlled. Unreadable. Yes. A pause. Then his jaw tightened. Saturday changes everything. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Did Ava make the right decision by accepting Daniel's invitation? If you were in her shoes, would you face your ex after 3 years? Or protect your peace and stay away? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson for more unforgettable stories. 8 years earlier, long before the wealth, long before the headlines, long before silence replaced laughter, Ava Bennett met Daniel Hawthorne on a rainy Thursday evening in downtown Chicago. And her first impression of him was simple. Annoying. Absolutely annoying. The cafe was crowded that evening. Rain poured outside, drumming steadily against the windows while exhausted professionals packed the warm little space. Ava sat in her usual corner with her laptop, trying to finish a presentation due the next morning. She hated distractions when working, which was why the man at the next table irritated her immediately. He talked too much, too loudly, too confidently. Even without looking up, she could hear him. Smooth voice, confident tone, sharp laughter. He was discussing market trends with another man like he was delivering a TED Talk. Ava rolled her eyes. Classic, arrogant finance guy. She kept typing, ignoring him, until she heard footsteps approaching. Then a voice, warm, confident, slightly amused. You've sighed dramatically at least 6 times in 10 minutes. Ava slowly looked up, and there he was, tall, sharp jaw, dark tailored coat still damp from rain, intelligent eyes, annoyingly attractive, and clearly very aware of it. He smiled. I'm guessing I'm the reason. Ava blinked, then narrowed her eyes. You're very loud. His smile widened. Well? He glanced around. It is a public cafe. She crossed her arms. So is a library. That doesn't mean you should yell in one. For half a second, he stared. Then he laughed. Not offended, genuinely amused. I deserved that. Ava returned to her laptop. Conversation over, or so she thought. Instead, he sat across from her, uninvited, comfortable. Ava looked up again, in disbelief. Can I help you? He extended a hand. Daniel Hawthorne. She ignored the hand. He didn't seem bothered. Still annoyed, he noted. Yes. That earned another laugh. Interesting. Most men with Daniel's confidence would have become defensive, but he seemed entertained, like he enjoyed resistance. Daniel leaned back slightly. So what would it take for you not to hate me? Ava stared at him, then deadpanned. Silence. Daniel grinned. That grin was dangerous. Confident, but not cruel. Charming, without trying too hard. Ava hated how quickly she noticed. He tilted his head. You always this difficult? She raised an eyebrow. You always this persistent? His smile softened. Yes. Their eyes locked. Something shifted, tiny, almost invisible, but real. Something neither fully understood yet. Then, Ava's phone rang. She glanced at the screen. Her expression changed instantly. Daniel noticed. The warmth in her face disappeared. She answered. Hello? Silence. Then her voice cooled. I already said no. Daniel looked away politely, but he couldn't ignore the tension. Ava's jaw tightened. Her voice grew sharper. No, Mom, I'm not discussing this again. A pause. Then, no. Longer silence. Then Ava closed her eyes. Pain flashed across her face. Raw, brief, but undeniable. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked slightly. He left. I know he left. Silence. Then she ended the call. The phone remained in her hand, her breathing shallow. Daniel said nothing. For once, no charm, no teasing, no clever remarks. Just silence. Respectful silence. Ava stared at the table, embarrassed. She hated being seen vulnerable, especially by strangers. After a moment, Daniel spoke quietly. That sounded difficult. Ava's walls rose instantly. It's none of your business. Daniel nodded. Fair. He stood. Ava expected him to leave, but instead, he simply placed a napkin on the table. She frowned. What's this? He gave a small shrug. My apology. Ava looked down. Written on the napkin was a short message. For what it's worth, you don't look difficult. You look tired. There's a difference. Ava stared at the words, then looked up. But Daniel was already stepping away. Halfway to the door, he turned. Rain blurred the city behind him. His voice came warm and calm. You should smile more. Ava glared. He smirked, then added, Not because you owe anyone happiness. His expression softened. But because I think life's been unfair to you, and I'd like to see what you look like when it isn't. For the first time all evening, Ava had no response. None. Daniel gave a small nod, then disappeared into the rain. Ava stared at the empty doorway. Her heart beat strangely. Not fast, not dramatic. Just different. She looked back at the napkin. Read it again. And again. Then, despite herself, she smiled. A small one. Barely there. But real. 3 weeks later, she saw him again. This time, outside her office. Ava froze. Daniel leaned casually against his car, hands in his coat pockets, like this was the most normal thing in the world. She blinked. What are you doing here? Daniel smiled. I'm persistent. Ava stared. You followed me? His expression shifted to mock offense. Followed is a strong word. She crossed her arms. Daniel, he sighed. Fine. Then admitted, I asked the cafe manager. Ava stared in disbelief. That's insane. Daniel grinned. Is it working? Ava fought a smile. Failed. Barely. Daniel noticed. His eyes warmed. There it is. Ava frowned. What? That smile. His voice softened. It's better in daylight. Something fluttered in Ava's chest. Small. Unexpected. Dangerous. Ava stared at him in disbelief. This man was unbelievable. Completely unbelievable. You are insane. Daniel placed a hand over his chest in mock offense. That hurts. It should. He laughed softly. God, that laugh. It was warm, unforced, annoyingly charming. Ava hated how easily it affected her. Daniel studied her face. Not casually, carefully, like he was trying to understand every expression, every wall, every hesitation. Then he asked, Dinner? Ava blinked. What? Dinner. His tone remained calm, direct, simple. Tonight. Ava stared. No. Daniel nodded once. Okay. She frowned. Okay? That was it? No argument? No charm offensive? No persistence? He turned slightly as if preparing to leave, then paused. What about coffee tomorrow? Ava narrowed her eyes. No. Daniel nodded again. Thursday? Ava almost laughed. Still no. Friday? No. Saturday? No. Sunday? Ava finally broke. A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. Daniel's grin widened. Victory. He saw it. She sighed. You're impossible. Daniel's voice softened. No. His eyes locked onto hers. I'm interested. The teasing vanished. Just like that. What remained felt startlingly sincere. Ava felt her defenses shift. Just a little. Not down. Never down. But less rigid. Daniel stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough for honesty. You intrigue me. Ava frowned. Why? Daniel didn't hesitate. Because everyone performs. She blinked. He continued. Everyone wants to impress. A pause. But you don't. His voice lowered. You're honest. Ava held his gaze. Daniel gave a small smile. You don't care whether I like you. She surprised herself by answering honestly. No. Daniel laughed softly. That's refreshing. Something about his tone disarmed her. No arrogance, no manipulation. Just truth. A dangerous kind of truth. She should walk away. She knew that. Men like Daniel Hawthorne didn't fit into safe categories. He was ambitious, sharp, intense, and men like that usually brought complications. Ava had enough complications already. Yet, something kept her there. Something quiet. Something curious. Daniel checked his watch, then looked back at her. 1 hour. Ava frowned. What? Dinner? He smiled. 1 hour of your life. She folded her arms. And if I hate it? His grin returned. Then you can spend the entire hour telling me how much you dislike me. Ava shook her head. This is ridiculous. Daniel waited. Patient, confident, but not forceful. Just present. That surprised her most. He wasn't pushing. He was simply waiting, giving her space, letting her decide. Finally, Ava exhaled. 1 hour. Daniel's smile deepened. 1 hour. She pointed a finger at him. This is not a date. Daniel nodded seriously. Of course not. Ava narrowed her eyes. He smiled. It's dinner with a woman who definitely doesn't like me. Despite herself, Ava smiled again, and Daniel noticed, every time. That first dinner lasted 4 hours, then 6, then multiple dinners, then walks, then long conversations, then late-night calls, then mornings that began with messages. Slowly, unexpectedly, Daniel became part of her life. Not because he forced his way in, because he earned space, piece by piece. Through patience, through consistency, through presence. That mattered to Ava. More than charm, more than wealth, more than words. Presence. One night, 3 months later, they sat on Daniel's apartment balcony overlooking the Chicago skyline. The city glowed beneath them. Quiet, beautiful. Ava held a mug of tea. Daniel held coffee. Neither spoke for a while. The silence felt comfortable. Safe. Daniel finally broke it. What happened with your father? Ava froze slightly. She turned toward him. He noticed. His voice stayed gentle. You don't have to answer. Ava looked at the city again. No one asked about her father. Most people avoided uncomfortable conversations. Daniel didn't. He asked, but never demanded. That difference mattered. After a long pause, she spoke. He left when I was 11. Daniel said nothing. Just listened. Ava continued quietly. One day he was there. She swallowed. The next day, gone. The old ache stirred. Familiar. Heavy. Her voice softened. No goodbye, no explanation. Daniel's expression changed. Warmer. Sadder. He just disappeared. Silence. Then Ava laughed bitterly. My mother spent years pretending she was fine. A pause. I learned early that people leave. Daniel's jaw tightened. Not from judgment, from understanding. Ava kept staring ahead. That does something to you. She swallowed. You start preparing for loss before love even has a chance. The words hung in the night air. Raw. Honest. Painfully honest. Daniel spoke quietly. So, you expect abandonment. Ava's chest tightened. He understood too quickly. Too clearly. She hated that. And loved it. She nodded once. Daniel set down his cup, then moved closer. Not touching. Just near. Present. His voice came soft. For what it's worth. Ava looked at him. Daniel held her gaze. I'm not your father. Something inside her trembled. Not because of the words. Because of how gently he said them. No ego. No promise he couldn't keep. Just honesty. Ava whispered. You can't know that. Daniel nodded. You're right. A pause. Then, I can't promise life won't get messy. His expression remained steady. I can't promise I'll never fail. His voice lowered. But, I can promise something else. Ava barely breathed. Daniel's eyes never left hers. If you matter to me. His voice turned almost painfully sincere. I won't disappear. Silence. Long, heavy, emotional. And for the first time in years, Ava believed someone. Really believed them. That scared her. Because trust always carried risk. But something deeper spoke louder. Peace, relief, recognition. Daniel reached for her hand, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their fingers intertwined, warm, steady, safe. And in that quiet Chicago night, Ava felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not excitement, not obsession, not infatuation. Something deeper, something rarer, safety. And without realizing it, she was falling. Deeply, completely, dangerously in love. Love didn't happen all at once for Ava and Daniel. It happened quietly, in ordinary moments, in small choices, in repeated consistency. That was what made it dangerous and beautiful. Daniel didn't win Ava over with grand gestures, not at first. He won her over with presence, with reliability, with the kind of emotional attention she had never experienced before. He noticed everything, the little things, the things most people missed. Like how Ava twisted the ring on her finger whenever she felt anxious, how she preferred tea over coffee after stressful days, how silence didn't always mean anger. Sometimes silence meant exhaustion, sometimes sadness, sometimes fear. Daniel noticed, and somehow, he understood. One cold Friday evening, Ava arrived at Daniel's apartment after an exhausting week at work. She barely made it inside before dropping her bag near the door. Daniel looked up from the kitchen. One glance at her face, and he knew. No questions, no unnecessary words, just quiet understanding. He walked over slowly, took her coat, set it aside, then asked softly, "Long week?" Ava exhaled, "Terrible week." Daniel nodded. Still no questions. Instead, he took her hand, led her toward the couch. She frowned. "What are you doing?" He smiled slightly. "Sit." Ava sat, still confused. Daniel disappeared into the kitchen. A minute later, he returned with tea. Her favorite. Chamomile. Extra honey. Exactly how she liked it. Ava stared at him. "You made tea." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You sound surprised." She looked down at the cup. Warmth spread through her chest. Not because of the tea. Because he noticed. Because he cared enough to remember. Because he paid attention. Her voice softened. "You remembered?" Daniel looked genuinely confused. "Of course I remembered." Like there was no world where he wouldn't. Like remembering her mattered. That small moment stayed with Ava, long after the tea, long after that night. Because that was Daniel. Present, attentive, intentional. He made her feel seen. And for someone who spent years feeling emotionally invisible, that mattered more than words. Months turned into a year. Then 2, love deepened, naturally, effortlessly, and eventually, Ava met the side of Daniel few people ever saw. The part hidden beneath ambition, the part buried beneath confidence. The boy behind the man. It happened one night after dinner at his apartment. Rain tapped softly against the windows. Daniel stood by the kitchen island, unusually quiet. Ava noticed immediately. She always noticed. "What's wrong?" Daniel gave a small shake of his head. "Nothing." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Daniel." Silence. Then he sighed, a rare crack in his composure. "It's my father." Ava waited. Daniel rarely talked about family. When he did, it was vague, brief, detached. Tonight felt different. His voice lowered. "He called." Ava frowned slightly. "And?" Daniel laughed once, bitterly. "He wants money." Ava's heart tightened. Daniel looked away, his jaw hard, controlled, but his eyes carried something deeper. Old pain, old anger, old wounds. "He only calls when he wants something." Ava said nothing. She simply listened. Daniel swallowed. "My father believed one thing." His voice sharpened. "That a man's worth is measured by success." Ava's expression softened. Daniel continued. "If you're powerful, respected, wealthy." A pause. "You matter." His voice dropped. "If not, you're nothing." Silence. Ava finally understood. Not just his ambition, his hunger, his relentless need to win. She understood the wound beneath it. Daniel laughed bitterly. "I spent my whole life trying to prove I'm not nothing." The vulnerability in his voice broke something in Ava. She moved closer, slowly, gently. Daniel didn't move, didn't resist. She reached for his hand, held it. Warm, steady, real. Her voice came soft. "You don't have to earn your worth." Daniel's eyes lifted to hers. She continued. "You don't have to prove anything to deserve love." Silence. His expression shifted. Pain, relief, disbelief. like he wanted to believe her, but didn't know how. Ava stepped closer, now inches away. You matter, Daniel. His breathing slowed. Ava held his gaze. You matter because you're you. The words landed somewhere deep. She saw it. The impact. The crack in his armor. And for one rare moment, Daniel let himself be fully seen. No walls, no masks, no performance, just truth. Then quietly, almost like confession, he whispered, "You scare me." Ava blinked. What? Daniel's eyes remained locked on hers. His voice raw, honest. Loving you scares me. Her heart pounded. Why? Daniel swallowed. Because you matter. A pause. Then, the truth. And losing you would destroy me. Tears burned behind Ava's eyes, not from sadness, from the overwhelming weight of being loved that deeply, being seen that clearly. Daniel lifted a hand and touched her cheek. Gentle, reverent, his voice lowered. You've become the safest part of my life. Ava's breath caught, and in that moment, she understood something undeniable. She loved him. Not casually, not carefully, completely, fully, terrifyingly. She smiled through tears. Then, whispered the words that changed everything. I love you. Daniel froze. For half a second. Then, something in him shattered. Emotion flooded his face. Raw, unfiltered. He exhaled shakily. Then whispered back, I love you too. And when he kissed her, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't desperate. It felt like home. Like truth. Like two wounded people finding peace in each other. 6 months later, Daniel proposed. Not in public. Not at a fancy event. Just the two of them. Sunday morning. Kitchen. Pancakes burning. Smoke everywhere. Ava laughing uncontrollably. Daniel holding a spatula in one hand. A ring in the other. She stared in shock. Daniel looked both terrified and amused. This is not how I planned this. Ava laughed through tears. You think? He shook his head. Then smiled. That beautiful smile she loved. And finally asked, Ava Bennett. His voice softened. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down her face. No hesitation, no doubt. Only love. Only certainty. Only him. Yes. Daniel laughed. Relieved. Emotional. Overwhelmed. As he slid the ring onto her finger, he whispered, You're stuck with me now. Ava smiled. Heart full. Safe. Loved. Certain. She believed him. She believed every promise. Every word. Every dream. And for a while, love felt safe. But neither of them knew then that love doesn't always die in loud moments. Sometimes it dies quietly, in small neglect, in silence, in distance, in everything left unsaid. And somewhere in the years ahead, the man who promised never to disappear would slowly become impossible to reach. Marriage changed things, not in bad ways, at least not immediately. For a while, Ava and Daniel were happy, truly happy. Their first year of marriage felt like everything they had prayed for. Love felt easy, natural, safe. Their penthouse in downtown Chicago became more than a luxury apartment. It became home. Warm Sunday mornings in the kitchen, late-night takeout on the couch, quiet movie nights, stolen kisses before work, small routines that made life feel intimate, real. Ava loved those little moments most, because beneath Daniel's ambition and sharp intelligence, there was still the man who made terrible pancakes. Still the man who remembered exactly how she liked her tea. Still the man who kissed her forehead before leaving for work. Still her Daniel. And Daniel adored her. Anyone who knew him could see it. The powerful, disciplined CEO became softer around Ava, lighter, warmer, human. She grounded him. She became the one place in life where he didn't feel the need to perform. The one place where he could simply exist. But success has a way of changing the rhythm of life. And pressure has a way of exposing the cracks people work hard to hide. Hawthorne Global began growing faster than anyone expected. New investors came in. New expansion deals. Bigger clients. Bigger opportunities. More pressure. More responsibility. And Daniel responded the only way he knew how. Work harder. Push harder. Sleep less. Control everything. At first, Ava understood completely. She supported him. Encouraged him. Stood by him. She believed this intense season would pass. It was temporary. At least, that was what Daniel kept saying. Just a few more months. Ava believed him. Every time. Until the months started turning into years. And little things began changing. At first, the changes were subtle, easy to dismiss. Missed dinners. Cancelled date nights. Late-night meetings. Weekend calls. Ava adjusted. She told herself not to overreact. Daniel was building something important, something meaningful, something for them. That was what he always said. For us. But slowly, for us began to feel like a shield, a phrase Daniel used whenever Ava expressed hurt. One evening, Ava prepared Daniel's favorite dinner. Pasta, garlic bread, wine, candles. Simple, intentional. She wanted one uninterrupted evening together. Just one. Their anniversary had passed 2 weeks earlier. He missed dinner that night too, so tonight mattered. A lot. She glanced at the clock. 8:43 p.m. Still no Daniel. Her phone buzzed. A message. Running late. Don't wait up. Ava stared at the screen. Her chest tightened. Not surprise. Not even anger. Just disappointment. Deep, familiar disappointment. She typed slowly. You promised tonight would be different. The typing bubble appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. Then, I know. I'm sorry. Big client issue. Ava read the message twice, then locked her phone. Something inside her sank. Quietly. Painfully. When Daniel finally walked in, it was close to midnight. His tie loosened. His face exhausted. He stopped when he saw her sitting in darkness. Only the dining candles remained lit. The untouched dinner still sat on the table. Cold. Daniel exhaled. Ava. She said nothing. Daniel moved closer. I'm sorry. Still silence. That unsettled him. Ava usually spoke. Tonight, she didn't. She simply looked at him. And that look said everything. Hurt. Loneliness. Exhaustion. Daniel rubbed his forehead. It was a difficult day. Ava finally spoke. Quietly. Too quietly. When is it not? Daniel froze. The words hit harder than shouting. Ava stood slowly. Her voice remained calm. Controlled. Dangerously calm. I'm trying, Daniel. He frowned. What? She looked at him. Eyes shining. I'm trying to be patient. A pause. I'm trying to be understanding. Another pause. I'm trying to support you. Her voice cracked slightly. But I feel alone. Silence. Daniel swallowed. Ava. No. Her voice hardened. No, listen. He stopped. Ava stepped closer. When was the last time we had dinner together without your phone ringing? Daniel said nothing. When was the last time we spent a full weekend together? Silence. When was the last time you asked how I'm doing and actually waited for the answer? That landed. Hard. Daniel's jaw tightened. His exhaustion turned into frustration, not because she was wrong, because she was right. And he hated feeling like he was failing. I'm doing all this for us. There it was again. That sentence. That shield. Ava closed her eyes. Then whispered, Please stop saying that. Daniel frowned. What? Her eyes opened, filled with hurt. Stop using that sentence like it fixes everything. Daniel's expression hardened slightly. It's the truth. Ava shook her head. No. Silence. Then, the truth came. Sharp. Painful. Honest. You're building a life for us. Tears filled her eyes. But you're never here to live it with me. The words hung heavily between them. Daniel felt something twist in his chest. Ava continued, voice trembling now. I miss my husband. Silence. Heavy silence. Then Daniel did what he always did under pressure. He retreated into logic, into defense, into control. I can't just walk away from responsibility. Ava stared at him. That's not what I'm asking. I'm carrying a company on my back, Ava. His voice sharpened. Do you think that's easy? Ava's pain deepened. Because suddenly, this wasn't about her loneliness anymore. It became about his stress. Again. Always. She spoke quietly. I'm not competing with your company, Daniel. Silence. I'm your wife. Her voice broke. I shouldn't have to beg for your presence. That hit something deep. But instead of softening, Daniel hardened. His voice lowered. Cold. Tired. Defensive. I'm doing my best. Ava stared, then whispered words that shook them both. What if your best isn't enough anymore? Silence. The room felt still. Dangerously still. Daniel's face changed. The words pierced straight through his deepest fear. Failure. Not enough. The wound he carried his entire life. His voice dropped. Sharp. Dangerous. What is that supposed to mean? Ava realized instantly. Wrong words. Wrong trigger. But it was too late. She stepped forward. Daniel, that's not... No. His voice rose. Not shouting, but intense. Raw. You think I'm failing you? Ava's heart pounded. That's not what I said. Daniel laughed bitterly. But that's what you meant. Ava stared at him, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something terrifying. Not anger, not sadness. Distance. Because the man standing before her wasn't listening. He was defending, protecting, reacting. And suddenly, she saw it clearly. Daniel wasn't fighting her. He was fighting every fear he had ever buried. And losing. Her voice softened. Painfully soft. "You're disappearing." Daniel froze. Silence. Ava's tears fell now. Quiet. Unstoppable. "The man I married." Her voice cracked. "I can't reach him anymore." Daniel stood still. No words. No defense. Because somewhere deep down, he knew. He knew she was telling the truth. And that truth terrified him. Because Daniel Hawthorne had spent his entire life believing he could fix anything. Solve anything. Control anything. But he didn't know how to fix this. How to fix them. And that scared him more than failure ever had. After that night, something changed. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But something shifted. A crack that had been forming for months finally became impossible to ignore. Ava and Daniel didn't suddenly stop loving each other. That was the tragedy. Love was still there. Buried beneath exhaustion. Beneath silence. Beneath pain. But love alone wasn't saving them anymore. The weeks after their argument felt strange, heavy, careful, like both of them were walking through emotional glass, trying not to make things worse, trying not to trigger another fight, trying not to say the wrong thing. But silence became its own kind of damage. Daniel threw himself deeper into work. If he was honest with himself, he didn't know what else to do. Work made sense. Problems had solutions. Numbers made sense. Strategies made sense. Markets made sense. But Ava? Emotions? Pain? Loneliness? He didn't know how to fix those things. And Daniel hated what he couldn't fix. So he worked. Longer hours. More meetings. More deals. More distractions. Meanwhile, Ava felt herself shrinking inside the marriage. That scared her. Because she promised herself long ago that she would never disappear inside love. Yet somehow, she was. One Friday evening, Ava sat alone in their bedroom, staring at the city lights beyond the window. Daniel was home, technically, but he had locked himself in his office for nearly 4 hours, working. Again, her phone buzzed. "Nina, how are you really?" Ava stared at the message, then typed, "I don't know anymore." The reply came fast. "That bad?" Ava's fingers trembled. She typed slowly, "I feel lonely in my own marriage." She stared at the message before pressing send. The truth hurt. Because once you say painful truths out loud, you can't pretend anymore. Nina called immediately. Ava answered. Nina's voice was soft. "Talk to me." Ava exhaled shakily. Then the tears came. Real tears. Not quiet sadness. Not frustration. Deep emotional exhaustion. "I don't know what happened." Her voice cracked. Nina listened. Ava continued. "He's here, but he's not here." She wiped tears. "I miss him so much." Nina said nothing. Just listened. That was enough. Ava swallowed hard. "He looks at me, but it's like he doesn't really see me anymore." Pain tightened in her chest. "I feel invisible." The word hung in the air. Invisible. Nina's voice came carefully. "Have you told him all this?" Ava laughed bitterly. "I've tried." A pause. "He hears criticism." That was the problem. Every vulnerable conversation somehow became a threat. A challenge. An attack. Daniel stopped hearing pain. He only heard failure. And once Daniel felt like he was failing, he shut down. Nina asked softly, "What do you want?" Ava closed her eyes. The answer came immediately. "I want my husband back." Silence. Then Nina asked the harder question. "And if he doesn't come back?" Ava froze. Her breathing stopped. Because she had avoided that question for months. No, longer than months. She whispered, "I don't know." But somewhere, deep inside, she feared she did. 2 weeks later, everything collapsed. It started with something small, something ordinary. A dinner, a promise, another broken promise. Daniel promised he would attend an important charity event with Ava. It mattered to her. She told him that. Clearly. He promised, repeatedly. "I'll be there." Ava believed him. She always wanted to believe him. So, she got ready. Wore his favorite dress. Waited by the entrance. Checked her phone. Nothing. 30 minutes passed. Then, 45. Then an hour. Her phone finally buzzed. A message. Emergency meeting. Can't make it. Sorry. That was it. 4 words. Can't make it. Sorry. Ava stared at the screen. Something inside her broke. Not loudly. Quietly. Completely. She didn't cry. Didn't call. Didn't text. She simply stood there, as the truth finally settled. Daniel wasn't choosing work once in a while. Daniel was choosing work. Over and over. And somewhere along the way, she had stopped mattering enough. By the time Daniel got home that night, Ava was waiting. Sitting in the living room. Still wearing the dress. Still wearing the heels. Daniel stopped the second he saw her. His expression shifted. He knew immediately. This was bad. Very bad. Ava. Her voice stopped him. Cold. Steady. Emotionless. No. Daniel froze. She stood slowly. Her eyes met his, and Daniel felt something terrifying. Nothing. No visible anger. No tears. No emotion. That frightened him more than any fight. Ava spoke quietly. I need you to tell me the truth. Daniel swallowed. What truth? A pause. Then, the question. The one that changed everything. Do you still want this marriage? Silence. Complete silence. Daniel froze. Because no matter how brilliant he was, no matter how powerful, no matter how prepared, he was not prepared for that question. The silence between them felt endless. Daniel stood frozen near the door. Ava stood in the middle of the living room, still in the dress she wore for the event he promised to attend. The soft city lights spilled through the glass windows. Everything felt still. Too still. Daniel stared at her. Ava held his gaze. Waiting. Not for excuses. Not for promises. For truth. Just truth. Finally, Daniel exhaled. Ava. His voice was low. Tired. Heavy. But Ava interrupted. No. Her voice remained calm. Steady. Don't tell me what I want to hear. Daniel's jaw tightened. She stepped closer. Eyes shining now. Voice breaking. Tell me the truth. Silence. Then she asked again. More painfully this time. Do you still want this marriage? Daniel looked at her. Really looked at her. And what he saw shattered something inside him. Pain. Exhaustion. Loneliness. And worst of all, resignation. Ava looked tired. Not physically. Emotionally. Like she had been carrying their marriage alone for too long. Daniel swallowed hard. His chest tightened. Because he loved her. He did. But love had become tangled with pressure. Failure. Fear. And somewhere deep inside, he felt something dangerous. Exhaustion. Not exhaustion from loving Ava. Exhaustion from feeling like he was constantly failing her. Constantly disappointing her. Constantly coming up short. He rubbed his forehead. Then spoke. Quietly. Painfully. Honest. In the worst possible way. I don't know. Ava froze. The words hit harder than shouting ever could. Her breathing stopped. Her heart dropped. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. What? Daniel closed his eyes. His voice cracked. I don't know anymore. Silence. Absolute silence. Ava felt like the floor had disappeared beneath her. No, no, this couldn't be happening. Not like this. Not after everything. Not after all the love they shared. Her eyes filled. You don't know? Daniel's face tightened. Ava, no. Her voice rose. Pain finally breaking through. No. Tears streamed down her face. I stood by you. Her voice shook violently. I loved you when you had nothing. Daniel's chest tightened. I supported every dream. Ava cried openly now. I gave you everything. The pain in her voice was unbearable. And now you don't know? Daniel looked shattered. Because every word was true. Every painful word. He stepped forward. Ava, please. She stepped back. That destroyed him. Ava had never stepped away from him before. Not like that. Not with fear. Not with heartbreak. She shook her head, her voice trembling. I don't recognize you anymore. Daniel's breathing turned shallow. Ava wiped tears angrily. When did I stop mattering? Silence. Daniel had no answer. Because there was no good answer. Ava laughed bitterly through tears. No. She nodded slowly. The realization finally landing. Painful. Brutal. Final. It's worse than that. Daniel stared. Ava looked straight at him. Voice suddenly quiet. Devastatingly quiet. You still love me. Daniel froze. Tears burned behind Ava's eyes. But not enough to choose me. That sentence shattered the room. Daniel broke. Ava, no. Her voice cracked. That's the truth. She stared at him with heartbreaking clarity. You love me. Tears fell. But your ambition owns you. Silence. And I can't compete with something that will always come first. Daniel felt something collapsing inside him. Because deep down, he knew. She was right. He had spent years telling himself he was doing all this for them. For their future. For security. For success. For safety. But somewhere along the way, success stopped being about them. It became about him, his fear, his need for control, his need to win. And by the time he saw it, the damage was already done. Ava's voice softened, almost broken now. I begged for your presence. She swallowed. I begged for scraps. Daniel's eyes filled. And the worst part? Her voice cracked. I started feeling lonely beside the one person who promised I'd never feel alone again. Daniel closed his eyes. Pain flooded him. Raw, merciless. Because that promise, the one he made on that balcony, I won't disappear. He broke it. Completely. Ava inhaled shakily, then said the words neither of them was ready for. I want a divorce. Daniel's eyes snapped open. Shock. Pure shock. No. His voice came instantly. Firm. Desperate. No. Ava cried harder, but her expression remained painfully calm. Daniel moved toward her. Panic rising. No, Ava. His voice shook. We can fix this. She stared at him. For a second, hope flickered in his chest. Then she spoke, and destroyed it. I asked for your attention. A pause. You gave me excuses. Tears streamed down her face. I asked for your time. Another pause. You gave me promises you never kept. Her voice dropped. I asked for my husband. Silence. And you gave me a stranger. Daniel broke. Completely. Because there was nothing to argue against. Nothing to defend. Only truth. Painful truth. Ava's voice softened one last time. I can't keep losing myself trying to hold on to someone who already left emotionally. Silence. Then she whispered, I deserve better than this. Daniel's tears finally fell. He didn't care. Didn't hide them. Didn't fight them. Because he was losing her. Really losing her. And for the first time in years, Daniel Hawthorne felt completely powerless. The divorce was finalized 4 months later. Clean. Quiet. Brutal. No public scandal. No ugly courtroom battle. Just two broken people signing papers with shattered hearts. Ava didn't cry in the lawyer's office. Not once. Daniel barely spoke. When it was over, Ava stood, gathered her things, walked toward the door, then stopped. Without turning, she whispered one final truth. The truth Daniel would carry for years. You didn't lose me because you worked too much. Daniel looked up, tears burning. Ava's voice broke. You lost me because you stopped letting me matter. Silence. Then she left, and Daniel sat there, alone, destroyed, with nothing but silence and regret. 3 years later, Daniel Hawthorne had everything he once thought would make him untouchable. Power, money, influence, respect. Hawthorne Global had grown into one of the most successful corporate empires in Chicago. His name carried weight in every room he entered. People admired him. Investors trusted him. Competitors feared him. The media loved him. To the outside world, Daniel Hawthorne was the definition of success. A self-made powerhouse. Disciplined, sharp, unshakable. A man who always won. But success has a cruel sense of humor. Sometimes it gives you everything you thought you wanted, only to show you what it can never replace. Daniel sat alone in his glass office on the 42nd floor, staring out at the Chicago skyline. The city sparkled below. Alive, busy, restless, just like him. His assistant, Claire, entered with a tablet. The gala guest list is finalized. Daniel didn't turn. Any issues? Claire hesitated. Then, no issues. A pause. Except one. Daniel already knew. Ava. Claire swallowed. She hasn't responded. Silence. Daniel's jaw tightened slightly. 3 years. 3 years since the divorce. 3 years without seeing her. 3 years without hearing her voice. And still, her name affected him. That irritated him. More than irritated him. It unsettled him. Because Daniel prided himself on control. Control over emotions. Control over outcomes. Control over perception. But Ava had always been the exception. The one person capable of disrupting every carefully built wall inside him. Claire spoke carefully. Do you still want her invitation active? Daniel finally turned, his expression unreadable. Yes. Claire studied him, then asked the question no one else dared ask. Why? Silence. Daniel walked toward the window again. Hands in pockets. Controlled. Measured. Then he answered. Because I need closure. Claire said nothing, but even she knew that answer felt incomplete. Daniel's voice lowered. She left believing I didn't care. Claire remained quiet. Daniel's jaw tightened. She left believing she understood everything. His voice turned colder. But she didn't. Claire frowned slightly. What do you mean? Daniel's expression hardened. For years, I carried everything. A pause. The pressure, the responsibility, the expectations. His voice dropped further. And all she saw was what I failed to give. Silence. Claire listened carefully. Daniel rarely spoke personally, especially about Ava. He continued. She never understood what it cost to build everything. Claire noticed something beneath his calm. Not anger, bitterness, pain, unresolved pain. Daniel looked out at the city. I gave her everything. The irony of those words, everything, except what mattered most, presence. But Daniel still didn't fully see that. Not yet. Claire spoke carefully, respectfully. Do you think this gala is really about closure? Daniel didn't answer immediately, because somewhere deep down, he knew. No, this wasn't just about closure. This was about something uglier, something harder to admit. Pride, because a part of Daniel still carried resentment. Resentment that Ava walked away. Resentment that she gave up. Resentment that she stopped choosing him, even though logic told him otherwise. Even though deep down he knew he failed her. Pain rarely behaves logically. Daniel turned. His expression sharpened. She'll come. Claire frowned. You sound sure. Daniel's voice became calm. Cold. Strategic. I know Ava. Those words carried dangerous confidence. Dangerous certainty. He believed he still understood her. Believed he still knew how she thought. Believed he still knew what drove her. And that belief would become his biggest mistake. Later that evening, Daniel attended a private investor dinner. Luxurious venue. Important people. Powerful conversations. Yet, his attention kept drifting. Until one investor said something that unexpectedly struck him. The older man laughed while discussing marriage. You know what ruins relationships? Daniel glanced at him. The man smirked. Assumptions. Daniel said nothing. The investor sipped his drink. You think you know what your partner thinks. A shrug. You stop asking. Daniel's chest tightened. The conversation moved on. But those words stayed. You stop asking. Something uncomfortable stirred inside him. A memory. Ava's voice. Clear. Painful. Raw. You decided what I needed without asking me. Daniel stiffened. He pushed the memory away. But not before discomfort settled in. Because no matter how much he buried the past, pieces of Ava remained. In memories. In regrets. In silence. That night, Daniel returned home to a penthouse that felt too quiet. Too empty. He loosened his tie and walked into the kitchen. Then stopped. Silence. But not just silence. Memory. For a split second, he almost expected to see Ava there. Laughing. Making tea. Smiling at him. The illusion disappeared instantly. Only emptiness remained. Daniel stared into nothing. Then whispered words he hated. Words he never admitted aloud. I miss you. The confession vanished into silence. And for the first time in years, Daniel allowed himself to admit something dangerous. He wasn't over her. Not even close. The next morning, Daniel arrived at Hawthorne Global earlier than usual. 6:10 a.m. The building was nearly empty. Quiet. Still. Just the way he liked it. Silence had become familiar over the years. Predictable. Safe. Unlike emotions. Unlike memories. Unlike Ava. Daniel stepped into his office with a coffee in hand and immediately noticed Claire waiting near his desk. She looked surprised. You're early. Daniel raised an eyebrow. So are you. Claire gave a small smile. Then her expression shifted. Professional again. There's something you should know. Daniel set down his coffee. What is it? Claire hesitated, then handed him a tablet. Daniel looked down. An email response. Short, simple, direct. His eyes scanned the message. Tell Mr. Hawthorne I'll be there. Silence. Absolute silence. Claire studied him carefully. Daniel's expression didn't change. Not outwardly. But something inside him shifted. She accepted. Ava accepted. After 3 years, she was coming. Claire broke the silence. She replied last night. Daniel said nothing. He kept staring at the message, reading the same sentence again and again. Claire spoke carefully. Should I finalize seating arrangements? Daniel finally looked up, his voice calm. Too calm. Yes. A pause. Then, she'll sit at the front. Claire blinked. Front? Daniel's gaze hardened. Yes. Claire hesitated. She had worked with Daniel long enough to recognize when something wasn't right. This wasn't closure. This wasn't reconciliation. This felt like strategy. A plan. Something carefully designed. She asked quietly, "What exactly are you trying to do?" Daniel walked toward the window. Chicago stretched beneath him. Massive. Controlled. Orderly. His voice came low. Measured. "I want her to see what she walked away from." Claire froze. There it was. The truth. Raw. Ugly. Human. Not closure. Pride. Pain. Ego. Resentment. Daniel's jaw tightened. She thought leaving was the answer. A pause. She thought I was the problem. Claire frowned. "Daniel." He cut her off. She left. Silence. His voice hardened. She gave up. Claire looked at him carefully, then said something bold, something dangerous. "No." Daniel turned sharply. Claire held his gaze. She didn't give up. Silence. Claire continued carefully. "She held on for years." Her voice softened. "From everything I know, she begged you to show up." The words landed hard. Daniel's expression darkened. "That's enough, Claire." But Claire didn't stop. Not this time. She didn't leave because she stopped loving you. A pause. She left because loving you was destroying her. Silence. Heavy silence. Daniel stared at her. Anger flickered, not because she was wrong, because she hit too close. His voice dropped. Cold. "You're crossing a line." Claire swallowed, but stood firm. "Maybe." A pause. "But someone needs to say it." Daniel's jaw clenched. The room felt tense. Then Claire softened. Her voice gentler now. "Why invite her?" Silence. Real silence. Not defensive. Not strategic. Just raw silence. Daniel looked away. And when he spoke again, the truth came out. Quiet. Painful. "I need to know." Claire frowned. "Know what?" Daniel swallowed. The words felt heavier than expected. "Whether she's moved on?" Claire stared. The tension shifted instantly. Everything suddenly made sense. This wasn't about humiliating Ava. Not entirely. This was deeper. More vulnerable. More painful. Daniel's voice lowered. "I need to see her." His expression hardened again. Like vulnerability had become too dangerous. "I need to know what's left." Claire finally understood. Beneath all the pride, all the control, all the arrogance, was a man carrying unresolved grief. A man who never healed. A man who lost the one person who truly knew him, and never recovered. Claire asked softly, "And if she's happy?" Silence. Daniel said nothing. But that silence answered everything, because he hadn't thought that far. Or maybe he had, and hated the possibility. That evening, Daniel sat alone in his penthouse, whiskey untouched beside him. His mind replayed memory after memory. Ava laughing in the kitchen. Ava teasing him. Ava asleep on his chest. Ava crying. Ava saying goodbye. Then, the final memory. The one that haunted him most. "You didn't lose me because you worked too much. You lost me because you stopped letting me matter." Daniel closed his eyes. Pain twisted sharply in his chest. For years, he told himself she didn't understand. For years, he convinced himself she abandoned him. For years, he buried guilt under work. But now, with Saturday approaching, the truth became harder to avoid. What if Ava had been right? What if he hadn't lost her because of work? What if he lost her because he stopped listening? Because he stopped seeing her? Because somewhere along the way, he chose ambition over presence. Daniel opened his eyes slowly. The silence around him felt suffocating. Then he whispered something he had avoided for 3 years. Something honest, something brutal. "What if I was wrong?" No one answered, only silence. But deep inside, for the first time in years, Daniel's certainty began to crack, and that terrified him. Because Saturday was coming, fast, and Daniel Hawthorne had no idea whether he was about to regain closure, or confront the biggest regret of his life. Before we move into the gala night, I want to hear from you. Why do you think Daniel really invited Ava? Was it pride, regret, love, or a desire for control? And tell me honestly, do you think Daniel truly loved Ava, or did he only realize her worth after losing her? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this emotional journey, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson, and turn on notifications because Chapter 6 is where everything changes. Ava is about to walk into that ballroom, and nothing will ever be the same again. Saturday came faster than either of them expected. For Daniel, the week passed in restless anticipation. For Ava, it felt heavier, longer. Every day brought the same question. Why am I doing this? She asked herself while getting dressed, while making coffee, while trying to sleep. The answer kept changing. Closure, curiosity, courage, maybe all three. Or maybe something simpler. She was tired of carrying ghosts. Saturday evening arrived cold and clear. Chicago glowed beneath a dark sky, as city lights reflected against glass towers. Inside her bedroom, Ava stood in front of the mirror. Silent, still. Her emerald gown hugged her figure with effortless elegance. Simple, sophisticated, powerful. No unnecessary glamour. No desperate need to impress. Just quiet confidence. Nina stood nearby, watching, then smiled slowly. Well? Ava met her eyes in the mirror. Well, what? Nina folded her arms. If Daniel survives tonight, I'll be shocked. Ava laughed softly. A real laugh. It helped. Nina stepped closer. Her expression softened. How are you feeling? Ava exhaled. Honest answer? Everything. Nervous, curious, angry, calm, strong, scared. She gave a small shrug. I don't know. Nina nodded. That's fair. Ava looked back at her reflection, her voice quiet. What if seeing him hurts? Nina stepped beside her, then answered gently. Then, at least you'll know. Ava swallowed. Nina continued. But I don't think that's what scares you most. Ava frowned. What do you think scares me? Nina looked directly at her. That he still matters. Silence. Painful silence. Because Nina was right. Not in the same way. Not with the same hold. But... yes, Daniel still mattered. You don't erase someone who shaped years of your life. Some people leave marks, even after healing. Ava looked away. Nina touched her shoulder. One thing? Ava waited. Nina's voice turned serious. Don't go there to prove anything. Ava frowned slightly. Then why go? Nina smiled. To tell yourself the truth. Those words settled deep. Ava nodded slowly, then reached for her purse. It's time. Across the city, Hawthorne Global's 25th anniversary gala had already begun. The ballroom shimmered with wealth and prestige. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over elegant tables. Music flowed softly. Laughter mixed with conversation. Chicago's most powerful people filled the room. Executives, investors, politicians, industry leaders, everyone important. And at the center of it all stood Daniel Hawthorne. Sharp black tuxedo, perfect posture, controlled expression. The picture of confidence. But beneath the calm exterior, tension brewed. Claire approached. She hasn't arrived yet. Daniel checked his watch. 8:07 p.m. His jaw tightened slightly. She'll come. Claire studied him. You keep saying that. Daniel didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the entrance. Then guests began shifting. Conversations softened. Heads turned. A subtle ripple moved through the ballroom. Claire noticed first. Her eyes widened slightly. Then she looked toward the entrance. Daniel followed her gaze. And froze. Everything stopped. Sound disappeared. Conversation vanished. Time slowed. Ava stood at the entrance. Elegant. Composed. Radiant. But what struck Daniel wasn't her beauty. Though she was breathtaking. It was something else. Presence. Energy. Strength. She looked nothing like the broken woman he expected. Nothing. The Ava standing before him looked calm. Grounded. Untouchable. Her posture was effortless. Her expression unreadable. No fear. No visible anxiety. Just quiet confidence. Daniel felt something sharp twist in his chest. Shock. Disbelief. And something dangerously close to regret. Because, in one devastating moment, he realized something. Ava hadn't just survived without him. She had rebuilt. And somehow, she looked stronger than ever. Claire glanced at Daniel. His face had changed. For the first time all night, his control slipped. Barely. But enough. She saw it. He wasn't prepared for this. Not at all. Ava stepped forward. Slowly. Gracefully. Eyes scanning the room. Then, her gaze found his. Silence. Absolute silence. Across a crowded ballroom, Daniel and Ava stared at each other. 3 years vanished. The world blurred. Only two people existed. Him. Her. Memory collided with reality. Daniel's heartbeat pounded harder. He hadn't prepared for this. For what? For her eyes. Those same eyes. Strong. Honest. Impossible to hide from. Ava held his gaze calmly. But inside, her heart thundered. Because there he was. Daniel. Older. Sharper. Still devastatingly composed. Still carrying that dangerous presence that could command entire rooms. But something had changed. Ava saw it instantly. He looked tired, not physically, emotionally, like success had added weight instead of peace. And for a split second, she saw him, not the CEO, not the powerful businessman, just Daniel, the man she once loved. Then reality returned. The ballroom came back into focus. Daniel moved first, slowly, deliberately. Every eye followed him, toward Ava, toward the woman everyone now realized mattered far more than they understood. He stopped in front of her, close enough to feel familiar, far enough to feel distant. Neither spoke for a moment. Then Daniel finally broke the silence, his voice lower than she remembered. Ava, just her name, but somehow it carried years of history, pain, love, regret. Ava held his gaze, steady, controlled, then answered, Daniel. For a moment, neither moved, neither looked away. The ballroom around them buzzed with silent curiosity. People were pretending not to stare, but everyone was watching, waiting, trying to understand why Daniel Hawthorne, the powerful CEO who controlled every room he entered, looked completely unsettled by one woman. One woman, his ex-wife. Daniel studied Ava carefully, too carefully, like he was trying to reconcile two versions of her. The woman he remembered, and the woman standing before him now. The difference unsettled him, because Ava wasn't nervous, she wasn't intimidated, she wasn't broken, she wasn't trying to impress anyone. She simply was, and somehow that quiet confidence shook him more than anger ever could. Daniel spoke first. You came. Ava's expression remained unreadable. You invited me. Simple, direct, no emotion, no warmth. Daniel swallowed. He wasn't used to this version of her. The old Ava was emotionally open, warm, easy to read. This Ava was different, stronger, more guarded, more dangerous. Because calm people are harder to predict. Daniel nodded slowly. Thank you for coming. Ava tilted her head slightly. For what, exactly? The question landed harder than expected. Daniel held her gaze. For giving this night a chance. Ava almost smiled. Almost. But it didn't reach her eyes. Interesting. Daniel frowned slightly. What is? Ava's voice remained soft, controlled. You still speak like everything is a negotiation. The words hit, sharp, precise. Daniel felt Claire's earlier words echo in his mind. She begged you to show up. He pushed the thought aside. Not now. A server approached with champagne. Daniel took 2 glasses and offered one to Ava. She looked at it, then at him, then calmly declined. No, thank you. Small gesture, big impact. 3 years ago, Daniel knew exactly what Ava would choose, what she liked, what she hated. Now, even something this simple felt unfamiliar. That realization unsettled him. A board member approached with a wide smile. Daniel, aren't you going to introduce us? Daniel's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. The timing irritated him, but he remained composed. Yes. He turned. This is Ava Bennett. A brief pause. Then, my ex-wife. The words hung in the air. Cold, sharp, public. Ava felt the sting instantly. Not because of the title, because of the distance in the phrasing. Ex-wife. 3 years, reduced to 2 syllables. The board member's expression shifted awkwardly. Then he forced a polite smile. A pleasure to meet you. Ava gave a graceful nod. You too. The man left. Silence returned. Ava looked at Daniel, and for the first time since arriving, something cold entered her eyes. Daniel noticed immediately. What? Her voice dropped. Quiet, but dangerous. So that's what tonight is? Daniel frowned. What are you talking about? Ava held his gaze. This. She gestured subtly around them. The introductions, the public display. Daniel stiffened. Ava stepped slightly closer. Her voice stayed calm, almost too calm. You wanted them to see me. Silence. Daniel said nothing. Because she wasn't wrong. Ava's eyes sharpened. And more importantly, a pause. You wanted me to see this. The ballroom, the power, the prestige, the empire, everything he built. Daniel's jaw tightened. Ava saw it, and understood instantly. Her lips curved into a sad smile. Not mocking, just disappointed. I see. Daniel's voice hardened. You think you know why you're here? Ava's eyes never left his. Then tell me. Silence stretched. Heavy. Dangerous. Daniel looked around briefly. Too many people. Wrong place. Wrong time. His voice lowered. Not here. Ava almost laughed. Of course. Still controlling the setting. Still choosing the battlefield. Daniel glanced toward the stage. The program schedule flashed in his mind. Speech in 10 minutes. Recognition segment. Everything was in motion now. Too late to change. Too late to avoid what came next. Claire approached quietly. "It's time." Daniel nodded once, then looked at Ava. His expression unreadable. "The speech is starting." Ava folded her arms slightly. "And?" Daniel held her gaze. "Stay." Not a command. Not quite a request. Something in between. Ava studied him, then slowly nodded. Not because of him, because she wanted answers. Daniel walked toward the stage. Each step felt heavier than before, because something had shifted. His confidence, his certainty, the carefully controlled plan in his head no longer felt stable. Not after seeing her. Not after realizing she wasn't broken. Not after recognizing how much power she still had. And Ava felt it too. Something was wrong. This night wasn't unfolding the way she expected. Not because Daniel seemed cruel. Because he seemed conflicted. That unsettled her. The room dimmed slightly. The stage lights brightened. Daniel took the microphone. The ballroom fell silent. Hundreds of eyes fixed on him. Daniel stood tall. Composed. Controlled. Yet inside, tension churned. He looked out at the crowd. Then slowly, his gaze found Ava. Front row. Still. Watching. Waiting. And suddenly, every prepared word felt meaningless. Because for the first time in years, Daniel Hawthorne wasn't certain of anything. He tightened his grip on the microphone. Then began. Success is often measured by numbers. The room listened. Daniel's voice remained steady. Confident. Controlled. Growth. Profit. Expansion. A pause. But those numbers never tell the full story. Silence. Daniel's eyes drifted toward Ava again. His heartbeat pounded. Something inside him cracked. Just slightly. Then he said words no one expected. Including himself. They never tell you what success costs. The room went still. Ava's expression shifted. Just slightly. And suddenly, she knew. Whatever happened next, everything was about to change. The ballroom became unnaturally quiet. Daniel stood on stage under the bright lights, one hand gripping the microphone. The silence felt heavy. Charged. Every executive, investor and guest watched him carefully. Waiting. At first, they assumed this was another polished CEO speech. The usual. Numbers. Growth. Achievements. Corporate success. But something felt different. Daniel wasn't speaking like a CEO tonight. He was speaking like a man carrying something personal. Something unresolved. Ava felt it immediately. Her body stiffened. Her eyes never left him. Daniel's gaze moved across the room, then returned to her. Always back to her. He swallowed, then continued. When people look at Hawthorne Global, they see success. His voice remained steady, measured. They see expansion, influence, achievement. A pause. They see everything I built. Silence. Then his expression changed. Subtly, the polished confidence softened. Something raw surfaced. Something human. But what most people don't see, his voice lowered, is what it cost. Ava's heartbeat quickened. No. No. What was he doing? The tension in the room deepened. Guests exchanged subtle glances. Claire stood near the stage, suddenly uneasy. This wasn't the planned speech, not even close. Daniel kept going, and every word felt heavier, more personal, more dangerous. I spent years believing success meant security. A pause. That if I built enough, achieved enough, won enough. His jaw tightened. Then everything would be safe. Silence. Then, I was wrong. Ava's chest tightened. Shock began creeping in. Because Daniel Hawthorne did not publicly admit weakness. Ever. The room was completely silent now. Daniel's eyes found Ava again. No escape. No hiding. Just truth. Painful truth. 3 years too late. He spoke again. And his voice changed. Less polished. More raw. I built this company into something powerful. A pause. And, in the process, he swallowed hard. I lost the person who mattered most. A collective stillness swept the room. Shock. Pure shock. Several guests looked toward Ava. Realization spread. This speech wasn't about business. This was about her. Daniel kept staring at Ava. His voice lowered. I told myself for years that the divorce happened because we grew apart. His grip tightened on the microphone. That wasn't true. Ava stopped breathing. Every part of her went still. Daniel continued. His voice cracked. Just slightly. Enough for Ava to notice. Enough to shake her. It happened because I confused providing with loving. The words hit Ava like a physical force. Pain, shock, disbelief. Daniel's expression tightened. I thought success would fix everything. A bitter laugh escaped him. It didn't. Silence. His eyes glistened now. Barely, but enough. And for the first time in years, Ava saw him. Not CEO Daniel. Not the powerful man the world admired. Just Daniel. The man she once loved. Broken, regretful, human. Daniel spoke again. And this time his voice carried no pride. Only truth. Only pain. I thought giving someone a beautiful life was enough. A pause. I thought sacrifice automatically meant love. His jaw tightened. But I was wrong. Silence stretched. Daniel's voice softened. Painfully. Love isn't management. Ava froze. Her eyes widened. Because those words, those exact words, she said them years ago. During one of their final arguments, Daniel remembered. He remembered. Tears burned behind Ava's eyes. Daniel continued, voice trembling now. Love is presence. Ava's vision blurred. No. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. She came prepared for arrogance, prepared for manipulation, prepared for subtle humiliation. She did not come prepared for this. Daniel inhaled slowly, then spoke words that shattered the room. And her. I failed my marriage. Silence. Complete silence. I failed the woman I loved. Ava's heart pounded violently. Daniel's eyes locked onto hers. No one else existed. Just them. Years of pain standing between them. His voice cracked. Fully this time. I hurt someone who deserved better. Tears slipped down Ava's face before she realized it. Daniel saw them, and it broke something inside him. Because even now, even after everything, her pain still reached him. He swallowed, then said the words he should have said years ago. Words buried under pride, fear, ego, regret. I'm sorry, Ava. The room froze. A collective shock filled the air. No one moved. No one spoke. The great Daniel Hawthorne, publicly apologizing to his ex-wife. Ava felt everything collapsing inside her. Anger, pain, love, grief, relief, all colliding at once. Because the apology she once begged for, the truth she once fought to hear, had finally come. But 3 years too late. The silence after Daniel's apology felt endless. No applause, no whispers, no movement. Just shock. Pure, stunned silence. Ava sat frozen in her seat. Tears blurred her vision. Her chest rose and fell unevenly. She couldn't think, couldn't breathe properly, because nothing about tonight made sense anymore. She came prepared for a battle, prepared for coldness, prepared for pride, prepared to defend herself. But Daniel had done the one thing she never expected. He told the truth. Publicly, completely, painfully. And somehow, that shook her more than cruelty ever could. Daniel stood on stage, breathing unevenly. His carefully constructed walls were gone. Destroyed. Every guest in the ballroom now understood one thing. This wasn't about corporate success. This was about regret, loss. A man confronting the wreckage of his own choices. Daniel slowly lowered the microphone. The speech was over, but the tension wasn't. Not even close. Because now every eye shifted to Ava. Waiting. What would she do? Would she walk out? Would she confront him? Would she forgive him? Ava hated it. The attention. The pressure. The emotional weight. She stood slowly. A ripple moved through the ballroom. Daniel's body tensed. Their eyes locked. The world disappeared again. Ava wiped her tears. Her face calm. But her heart felt chaotic. Broken open. Daniel stepped down from the stage. Slowly. Carefully. Not rushing. Not forcing. Just moving toward her. He stopped a few feet away. Close enough to speak. Far enough to respect distance. Neither spoke at first. Then Ava finally broke the silence. Her voice low. Controlled. Dangerously steady. You did this here? Daniel swallowed. Ava. No. Her voice sharpened slightly. No. Years of buried emotion sat behind that single word. Her eyes shone with pain. You chose this. She gestured around them. The room, the audience, the public spectacle, all of this. Daniel's jaw tightened. Because she was right. Ava stepped closer. Not afraid. Not hesitant. Her voice trembled now. Not from weakness. From intensity. Do you have any idea what this feels like? Silence. Daniel said nothing. Because no answer would be enough. Ava laughed bitterly through tears. For 3 years. Her voice cracked. For 3 years, I begged myself to stop replaying everything. She held his gaze. I questioned myself. A pause. I questioned us. Another pause. I questioned whether I was asking for too much. Daniel looked shattered. Ava continued, and every word hit harder than the last. I wondered if maybe I should have tried harder. Tears fell freely now. I wondered if maybe I failed you. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. Pain twisted through him. Ava's voice broke. And now? She looked around, at the crowd, at the stage, at the spectacle. You decide to say everything here? Daniel finally spoke. Voice low, raw. I didn't plan this. Ava laughed again. Sharp. Painful. No? Her eyes locked onto his. Then what exactly did you plan? Silence. Daniel froze. Because now came the truth. The ugly truth. The truth he hated. Ava saw it instantly. Her expression changed. Understanding, then disappointment. Deep disappointment. Her voice dropped. Quiet. Deadly. You wanted to hurt me. Daniel flinched, because the words struck too close. Ava's gaze sharpened. You invited me here to make me see everything you built. A pause. Everything I walked away from. Daniel said nothing. Ava nodded slowly. Painfully. I knew it. Silence. Then Daniel finally spoke. Honest. Brutal. Yes. The single word shattered the space between them. Ava's face tightened. Daniel continued quickly. But that's not what this became. Ava's chest tightened. Daniel stepped closer. His voice shook now. No CEO, no performance. Just truth. When I saw you tonight, he swallowed. Everything inside him felt exposed. Raw. Vulnerable. You weren't broken. His voice cracked. You weren't bitter. A pause. You weren't ruined. His eyes glistened. And then came the painful truth. You were strong. Silence. Daniel's breathing turned uneven. And suddenly, his voice broke. I saw what I lost. Ava's tears slowed, not because pain faded, because truth had entered. Heavy, complicated, real. Daniel looked at her like a drowning man holding on to honesty. For years I blamed you. Ava froze. Daniel continued, his voice filled with shame. I told myself you gave up on us. A bitter laugh escaped him. I told myself you walked away. His jaw tightened. But that wasn't true. Silence. Daniel's eyes never left hers. You stayed. A pause. You fought. Another pause. You begged me to show up. His voice shattered completely. And I didn't. The raw honesty shook Ava. Because Daniel had never admitted fault like this. Never. Not like this. Not without defense. Not without ego. Not without conditions. Daniel's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I was wrong. Silence. Then the final truth. The deepest truth. The one that changed everything. I never stopped loving you. The room felt still. Ava's heart clenched painfully. Because that was the cruelest truth of all. Not that he stopped loving her. Not that love died. But that love remained. And still wasn't enough. Tears filled Ava's eyes again. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Then whispered words that cut deeper than anger ever could. I believe you. Daniel froze. Hope flickered. Tiny. Fragile. Then Ava continued. And destroyed it. But love wasn't the problem. Silence. Ava wiped her tears. Voice soft. Steady. Final. You loved me. A pause. But you stopped choosing me. Daniel broke inside. Because she was right. Completely right. And there was no escaping that truth. The ballroom had become unbearable. Too many eyes, too much emotion, too much truth exposed in public. Claire stepped in quietly, her voice calm. Daniel. He didn't look away from Ava. Claire continued carefully. You should take this somewhere private. Ava exhaled slowly. For once, she agreed. This conversation no longer belonged to a crowd. Daniel nodded, then looked at Ava, his voice low. Please. Just one word. No demands. No control. Just a request. Ava hesitated. Part of her wanted to leave, to walk away, to protect herself. But another part knew this conversation had been waiting 3 years to happen, and unfinished pain had a way of following you, until you faced it. Finally, Ava nodded. Silently, Daniel led her toward a private terrace outside the ballroom. Cold Chicago air greeted them instantly. Sharp, clean, quiet. The city lights stretched endlessly below. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt different here. Less performative, more honest. Daniel stood a few feet away, hands tense at his sides. Ava folded her arms, trying to steady herself. The cold helped. It slowed her breathing, grounded her. Daniel spoke first, his voice careful. "I know I don't deserve this conversation." Ava said nothing. Daniel swallowed. "But, thank you for staying." Silence. Then Ava finally spoke. Quietly. "You still don't get it." Daniel frowned slightly. "What?" Ava looked at him, eyes tired, heavy with years of pain. "This?" She gestured between them. "Tonight?" A pause. "Your speech." Another pause. "Even this conversation." Daniel's chest tightened. Ava's voice remained calm. Painfully calm. "It's still on your terms." Silence. The words landed hard. Daniel froze. Because immediately, he saw it. She was right. Again. Ava continued. "You decide when to talk." Her gaze sharpened. "You decide where." A pause. "You decide how." Daniel felt shame crawl through him. Ava stepped closer. Not angry, just honest. "And, somehow." Her voice cracked slightly. "It always becomes about your realization." Silence. That hurt, because it was true. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it again. No defense came. None. Ava's eyes glistened. "For years, Daniel." She swallowed. "I tried to make you understand." Tears returned. Slowly, quietly. "You kept hearing criticism." A pause. "But you never heard pain." Daniel's breathing grew shallow. Ava's voice softened, and somehow, that made every word hurt more. "I wasn't angry because you worked hard." Silence. "I was hurting because I missed you." Daniel stared at her. Ava kept going. Years of buried truth pouring out. Raw. Unfiltered. "I didn't need luxury." Tears slipped down. "I didn't need status." Another tear. "I needed my husband." Daniel felt something breaking deep inside. Ava looked straight into him, and spoke the truth he had spent years avoiding. "You thought love meant protecting me." A pause. "Providing for me." Another pause. "Solving everything." Her voice trembled. "But I never asked for perfection." Silence. "I asked for presence." Daniel's eyes filled. Ava wiped tears angrily. "I asked you to let me matter." The words hit like a blade. Because suddenly, Daniel remembered. All of it. The dinners, the missed anniversaries, the broken promises, the quiet tears, the loneliness in her eyes. He remembered every time she tried to reach him, and every time he defended instead of listening. Daniel whispered, "I know." Ava shook her head immediately. "No." Her voice sharpened. "No, you don't." Daniel froze. Ava's pain deepened. "Because if you understood, Her voice cracked hard. "You would understand what actually broke me." Silence. Daniel barely breathed. Ava's eyes flooded. And then she revealed the deepest wound. The wound he never saw. It wasn't the missed dinners. Daniel stared. It wasn't the long hours. His chest tightened. It wasn't even the broken promises. A pause. Then, the truth. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. It was the loneliness. Daniel stopped breathing. Ava cried openly now. Raw, unrestrained. "I felt alone beside the person who promised I'd never feel alone." The words shattered him. Completely. Because, suddenly, Daniel understood. Not intellectually, not logically, emotionally. He understood. He saw it. Really saw it. The real damage. The real wound. Ava continued through tears. "I started feeling invisible." A pause. "And that broke something inside me." Daniel's tears fell silently. Ava's voice weakened. "When you stopped seeing me." Her face crumpled. "I started disappearing too." Silence. Only city wind. Only grief. Only truth. Daniel stood frozen, destroyed, because for the first time, he truly saw the pain he caused. Not the arguments. Not the divorce. The loneliness before all of that. The slow emotional death of the woman he loved. And the worst part? She suffered while standing right beside him. And he missed it. Daniel stood motionless. The cold wind moved around them, but he barely felt it. All he could feel was Ava's pain. Every word she spoke had stripped away another layer of denial. Another layer of pride. Another layer of the story he told himself for years. He had spent 3 years believing he understood their divorce, believing he understood Ava's decision, believing he was the one abandoned. But now, standing here in the cold Chicago night, the truth looked painfully different. He hadn't been abandoned. He had lost her. Slowly, quietly, painfully, because he stopped seeing the woman standing right in front of him. Ava wiped at her tears, trying to regain control. Her breathing remained uneven, but her voice, when she spoke again, was steady, stronger, more grounded. I need you to understand something. Daniel lifted his eyes to hers. Ava held his gaze. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. His chest tightened. She continued. That was never the problem. Silence. I loved you until the very end. Daniel's breathing turned shallow. Ava's voice softened. Painful, beautiful, honest. I kept hoping the man I married would come back. A pause. I kept telling myself this was temporary. Another pause. Just one more deal. Her voice cracked. Just one more busy season. Tears filled her eyes again. Just one more promise. Daniel closed his eyes briefly, because every word was true. He remembered. He remembered all the times he asked for more time. And she gave it, over and over, until there was nothing left to give. Ava continued, her voice trembling. I waited for you. A pause. I fought for you. Another pause. I defended you. Then the words that destroyed him. But, eventually, tears slipped down. I realized I was grieving a marriage that hadn't even ended yet. Silence. The sentence hit Daniel like a physical blow. Because that was it. That was the tragedy. She lost him long before the divorce papers. Daniel's voice cracked when he finally spoke. I thought I was protecting us. Ava's eyes softened slightly. Not forgiveness. Just understanding. I know. Daniel swallowed hard. His tears fell freely now. I thought if I worked harder, His voice shook. If I built enough. What? A bitter laugh escaped him. If I secured everything. He looked at her, broken. Then nothing could hurt us. Ava watched him quietly. Daniel shook his head slowly. I didn't realize. His voice broke. I was becoming the thing hurting us. Silence. Ava looked away briefly. At the city lights. At the endless skyline. Then back at him. Her expression gentler now. Still wounded. Still guarded. But softer. And then she spoke the truth that would stay with him forever. You know what the hardest part was? Daniel barely breathed. Ava's eyes filled again. You were still physically there. Silence. She swallowed. You still slept beside me. A pause. You still came home. Another pause. But, emotionally. Her voice shattered. You were gone. Daniel's face crumpled, because he could finally see it. The distance, the emptiness, the silence. All the nights she slept beside someone unreachable. Ava wiped away fresh tears. When my father left. Daniel froze. She rarely spoke about that wound. Even during marriage, Ava's voice grew quieter. I thought nothing would hurt more than being abandoned. Silence. Then, I was wrong. Daniel felt dread creep into his chest. Ava's eyes locked onto his, and she delivered the deepest wound of all. Being abandoned slowly hurts more. Daniel shattered, completely, because she had just put words to something he never understood. He didn't leave in one day. He disappeared piece by piece, and every piece he withdrew wounded her. Daniel cried openly now. No pride left, no ego, no walls, only regret, only grief, only truth. His voice came broken. I'm sorry. Ava said nothing. Daniel stepped forward slightly, not too close, respecting distance, but desperate to be heard. I was scared. Ava frowned slightly. Daniel's voice trembled. Every time you told me you were hurting. He swallowed. It triggered something ugly in me. Silence. He struggled for words, because this truth felt humiliating, painful, but necessary. I didn't hear pain. Ava's eyes remained fixed on him. Daniel continued, voice raw. I heard failure. Silence. His jaw tightened. I heard that I wasn't enough. Tears fell. I heard my father's voice. Ava's expression shifted. Understanding flickered. Daniel's voice broke. The more afraid I felt. A pause. The harder I worked. A bitter laugh escaped him. I thought success would make me enough. He shook his head. It never did. Silence. Then Daniel whispered the truth. I failed you. No defense. No explanation. Just accountability. Pure, simple, painful. Ava stared at him. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she exhaled. Long, heavy, like years of emotion leaving her body. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. Steady, clear. You did. Daniel closed his eyes. The truth hurt, but he accepted it. Because it was real. Ava's gaze softened. Not with reconciliation, with clarity. And clarity can be more powerful than love. You failed me, Daniel. A pause. Then, but I'm not here to punish you. Daniel slowly opened his eyes. Ava looked calm now, grounded, stronger than before. And in that moment, Daniel realized something devastating. The woman standing before him wasn't here for revenge. She wasn't here to humiliate him. She wasn't here to make him suffer. She was here because she had finally healed enough to tell the truth without breaking. And somehow, that humbled him more than anything else ever could. The wind moved softly around them. Chicago glittered below like 1,000 distant stars. But on that terrace, only silence existed. Heavy, honest, sacred. Ava stood before Daniel with a calmness he had never fully understood, until now. Not cold, not cruel, just clear. Clear in a way pain sometimes makes people. Daniel looked at her like a man seeing truth for the first time. No titles, no wealth, no power, none of it mattered here. Only honesty remained. Ava broke the silence. Her voice steady, quiet. You know something strange? Daniel lifted tired eyes toward her. Ava gave a small, sad smile. For a long time, I thought I needed this moment. A pause. I thought I needed you to understand. Another pause. I thought I needed an apology. Daniel's chest tightened. Ava looked out at the city lights, then back at him. But healing did something unexpected. Daniel remained silent, listening, really listening. Ava continued. It taught me something important. Her gaze sharpened. I was waiting for you to validate my pain. Silence. Ava exhaled slowly. But my healing couldn't depend on whether you understood. Daniel stared at her. Every word felt like truth wrapped in grace. Ava's voice softened. At some point, a pause. I had to stop asking you to name what happened to me. Tears burned behind Daniel's eyes again. Ava continued. I had to name it myself. Silence. Then came the lesson. The real lesson. The truth that would change him forever. You didn't break me in the divorce. Daniel froze. Ava held his gaze. You broke me in the years before that. The words landed like thunder. Daniel's breathing stopped. Ava's voice remained calm. Painfully calm. It wasn't the divorce papers. A pause. It was the emotional abandonment. Another pause. It was becoming invisible. Daniel's eyes filled. Ava stepped closer. Not angry. Not cruel. Just honest. You know what hurt most? Daniel barely whispered. What? Ava's expression softened. You made loneliness feel normal. Silence. The city wind seemed louder now. Daniel felt something collapse inside him. Because those words captured everything. Everything. Ava continued. I started doubting myself. A pause. I started questioning my worth. Another pause. I started shrinking. Tears slipped down quietly. And the scariest part, she swallowed. I almost accepted it. Daniel's face crumpled. Ava's voice shook slightly. I almost accepted being loved halfway. Silence. Daniel's tears fell freely now. Because the woman he loved had nearly lost herself trying to keep him. Ava wiped her tears calmly, then delivered the deepest lesson of all. Love is not enough. Daniel froze. The words hit hard. Because he had spent years hiding behind one belief. That loving her should have been enough. That intention should have mattered. That sacrifice should have counted. Ava shattered that illusion. You loved me. A pause. I believe that. Another pause. But love without presence becomes pain. Silence. Love without emotional safety becomes loneliness. A pause. Love without choosing each other becomes performance. Daniel stood shattered, because every word was true. And for the first time in his life, Daniel Hawthorne had no argument, no defense, no solution, only truth. Ava's voice softened again, and somehow, that hurt most. You loved me the best way you knew how. Tears burned in Daniel's eyes. Ava continued. But love isn't just intention. A pause. It's awareness. Another pause. It's listening. Another. It's choosing someone over and over. Daniel lowered his head. Ashamed, broken. Ava looked at him carefully, then said the words he needed most. The lesson. The truth. The final understanding. You didn't lose me because you worked too much. Daniel slowly looked up. Ava's eyes glistened. You lost me because you stopped letting me matter. The exact words. Her final words from the lawyer's office. Now spoken again. But this time, Daniel truly understood. Not intellectually, not logically, emotionally, completely. And it destroyed him. Daniel stood in silence, completely still. Ava's words echoed through every part of him. You lost me because you stopped letting me matter. This time, the words didn't feel like accusation. They felt like truth. Pure, painful, undeniable. And truth has a way of humbling even the strongest people. Daniel lowered his head. His shoulders, once so rigid and controlled, now looked heavy, burdened, human. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I understand now. Ava said nothing. Daniel swallowed hard. Tears slipped down his face. No attempt to hide them. No pride left to protect. Only honesty. Only regret. Only grief. I spent years believing love meant sacrifice. His voice shook. I thought if I carried enough, provided enough, achieved enough. A bitter laugh escaped him. Then that would prove how much I loved you. He lifted his eyes to hers. Broken. Raw. But I never realized. His voice cracked. I was asking you to live with the consequences of my fear. Silence. Ava listened quietly. Daniel continued, and each word sounded like confession. My father taught me that worth had to be earned. A pause. That love had conditions. Another pause. That weakness was dangerous. He shook his head slowly. So every time I felt like I was failing, his jaw tightened. I ran toward the one thing that made me feel in control. Silence. Work. The word hung in the cold air. Simple. Heavy. True. Daniel exhaled shakily. I thought I was protecting us. A sad smile crossed his face. But really? His voice dropped. I was protecting myself. Ava's expression softened, not with pity, with understanding. Because now he was finally telling the truth. Not polished truth. Not convenient truth. Real truth. Daniel's eyes filled again. I hurt the person who loved me most. His voice broke completely. The one person who saw me clearly. He swallowed. And instead of letting you in, tears fell. I shut you out. Silence. The city below continued moving. Cars, lights, life. Yet on that terrace, time felt suspended. Daniel looked at Ava. Really looked at her. Not through pride. Not through pain. Just clarity. And then he asked the question that had haunted him for 3 years. Voice fragile. Quiet. Did you ever hate me? Ava blinked. The question caught her off guard. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she exhaled slowly and answered with truth. No. Daniel froze. Ava's eyes glistened. I was angry. A pause. Deeply hurt. Another pause. But hate. She shook her head gently. No. Daniel's chest tightened. Ava's voice softened. I hated what happened to us. A pause. I hated what we became. Another pause. But I never hated you. Daniel felt tears burn again. Because, somehow, her honesty hurt and healed at the same time. Ava looked at him carefully, then spoke words he never expected. I forgive you. Daniel stopped breathing. Silence. Complete silence. He stared at her. Shock. Disbelief. Emotion flooding every part of him. Ava continued softly. Not because what happened was okay. A pause. Not because it didn't hurt. Another pause. But because I needed peace. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. Ava's voice remained calm. Grounded. Strong. Forgiveness wasn't about freeing you. Silence. It was about freeing me. Daniel broke. Completely. Because forgiveness from someone you deeply wounded carries a different kind of weight. Not relief. Responsibility. Grace. Humility. Ava looked at him one final time. Then said the words that mattered most. Quiet. Clear. Final. I hope you heal, Daniel. His chest ached. Ava continued. I hope you learn how to let people love you without turning love into responsibility. Silence. I hope one day you stop measuring your worth by performance. Tears streamed down Daniel's face. Ava gave him a small, sad smile. Because, despite everything, a part of her would always care. Some loves change shape, but they never fully disappear. Then Daniel asked the question he feared most. The question sitting heavy in his heart. Ava, His voice shook. She waited. Daniel swallowed hard and whispered, "Is it too late for us?" Silence. Long, heavy, painful. Ava's eyes filled with emotion. Because that question carried years of love, years of regret, years of pain. She looked at him for a long moment, then answered with quiet honesty, "I don't know." Daniel froze. Ava's voice softened. "That's the truth." A pause. "I don't know." She held his gaze. "But I know this." Daniel barely breathed. Ava's eyes glistened. "We can't go back." Silence. "What we had is gone." The truth hurt, but it was real. Ava continued, "And if anything new could ever exist," a pause, "it would have to be built from truth." Another pause. "Not memory." Daniel stood still, absorbing every word. Because she was right. They couldn't rebuild from nostalgia. Only truth. Only growth. Only change. Ava gave him one final look, then turned toward the ballroom doors. Daniel's voice stopped her. "Ava." She paused. Without turning, Daniel spoke through tears. 3 words, raw, simple, true. "I love you." Silence. Ava closed her eyes, pain and warmth colliding inside her. Then, quietly, without turning, "I know," and she walked away, leaving Daniel standing alone under the cold Chicago night. Changed, broken open, but finally honest. The ride home felt unreal. Chicago's city lights blurred past Ava's window like distant memories. Beautiful, familiar, and somehow far away. She sat in silence in the back seat, hands resting in her lap, breathing slowly. The driver asked once if she was okay. She simply nodded. No words. Because what could she even say? How do you explain what happens when the apology you waited years to hear finally comes, but arrives long after the damage? How do you explain what it feels like to watch the person who broke your heart finally understand your pain? Ava stared out the window. Emotion moved through her in waves. Relief, sadness, peace, grief. Something had ended tonight. But strangely, something else had ended too. The weight, the unfinished pain, the constant questioning, the old wounds that kept asking for answers. Tonight, she finally got them. Not perfect answers, not healing in one magical moment, but truth, and truth has power. When Ava walked into her condo, Nina was waiting. The second she saw Ava's face, she stood. Concern filled her expression. How bad was it? Ava stared at her for 2 seconds. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. Nina blinked. What? Ava laughed again. Not because anything was funny, because emotional overwhelm had reached its limit. Then tears came. Fast, heavy, unstoppable. Nina rushed forward and wrapped her in a hug. That was all it took. Ava broke. Completely. Years of buried pain poured out all at once. Nina held her tightly. No questions, no interruptions. Just presence. Exactly what Ava once begged for. Between tears, Ava finally whispered, "He apologized." Nina froze, then slowly pulled back. What? Ava wiped tears. Still shaken. He apologized. Nina stared. In public? Ava nodded. Nina's eyes widened. Daniel Hawthorne apologized publicly. Ava gave a shaky laugh. Yes. Nina looked stunned, speechless. Then, what happened? Ava sat on the couch and spent the next hour telling Nina everything. The speech, the confrontation, the terrace, the truth, Daniel's tears, his apology, his confession, his question, is it too late for us? When she finished, silence filled the room. Nina sat still for a moment, processing. Then she exhaled. Well? Ava gave a tired smile. Well? Nina looked at her carefully. That was not what I expected. Ava laughed softly. Same. Nina's expression softened. How do you feel? Ava leaned back, stared at the ceiling, and answered honestly. Lighter. Nina smiled slightly. Ava's voice softened. For the first time in years, a pause. I feel free. Silence. Then Ava admitted something deeper. I think I spent years waiting. Nina frowned. Waiting for what? Ava's eyes glistened. For him to understand. A pause. For him to finally see what happened. Another pause. For validation. She exhaled. But now... A small smile touched her lips. I don't need it anymore. Nina studied her, then smiled. You really healed. Ava looked down. And for the first time, she believed it. Not because she no longer felt pain, Not because Daniel no longer mattered, but because his understanding was no longer necessary for her peace. That was growth, real growth. Across the city, Daniel sat alone on the terrace of his penthouse. Same city, different silence, no whiskey, no distractions, no work, just him and truth. The night air felt cold against his skin, but he welcomed it. Pain felt appropriate, necessary. For years, Daniel ran from discomfort, ran from vulnerability, ran from failure. Work became his escape. Control became his armor. Success became his identity. Tonight, all of it cracked. And standing in the wreckage of his own truth, Daniel felt something unfamiliar. Clarity. Painful clarity. Ava's words replayed in his mind. You made loneliness feel normal. He closed his eyes. The sentence cut deepest because it was true. Brutally true. And now he could finally see everything he once missed. Every ignored moment. Every quiet disappointment. Every plea hidden behind her words. Every time she reached for him and found distance. Regret flooded him. Heavy, merciless. Then his phone buzzed. Claire. A message. You okay? Daniel stared at the screen. Then typed something simple. Honest. No. But I think I finally understand. Claire replied. That matters. Daniel looked at the message, then stared at the city again. For the first time in years he asked himself a question he had avoided. Who am I without achievement? Without work? Without performance? The question terrified him, because he didn't know. Not really. And maybe that was the real problem. He had spent his whole life building success, but never built himself. That realization hit hard, because now he understood something Ava tried to tell him years ago. You cannot build healthy love on an unhealthy identity. Sooner or later, the cracks spread. Daniel exhaled slowly, and for the first time in years, he made a decision not rooted in business, not rooted in control, not rooted in image, but in truth. Tomorrow, he would start therapy. Real therapy. Not because of Ava, not to win her back, not to fix appearances, for himself. Because whether Ava ever returned or not, he needed to change. Really change. Not for love. For truth. And somewhere deep inside, Daniel understood something important. Losing Ava might become the greatest pain of his life. But if he truly learned from it, it might also become the beginning of his healing. 3 months later, Sunday morning, 7:30 a.m., steam rose softly from the iron as Ava pressed a pale blue blouse. Smooth. Press. Lift. Repeat. The familiar routine brought a small smile to her lips. Funny. 3 months ago this ritual felt like control. A way to manage pain. A way to calm restless thoughts. Now, it felt different, lighter, peaceful. No desperate need to suppress memory. No hidden grief waiting beneath silence. Just stillness. Just presence. Just peace. Healing hadn't erased everything. Daniel still crossed her mind sometimes. Certain songs, certain streets, certain quiet Sunday mornings. But the thoughts no longer carried sharp pain. Only tenderness. And acceptance. Some people leave permanent marks. That doesn't mean those marks must remain wounds. Her phone buzzed. A message from Nina. Brunch. 1 hour. Don't cancel. Ava smiled. Some things never changed. She typed back. I'll be there. Just as she set her phone down, another message appeared. Unknown number. Ava frowned slightly, then opened it. Her heart paused. Daniel. The message was simple. No pressure. No manipulation. No hidden agenda. Just words. Honest words. Hi, Ava. I know I have no right to ask anything from you. I just wanted to say thank you. Ava stared. Her chest tightened slightly. She kept reading. That night changed me. I started therapy the next morning. For once in my life, I stopped running. Tears burned unexpectedly in her eyes. She continued. I'm learning things about myself I should have faced years ago. Painful things. Necessary things. A pause. Then, you were right. About everything. Ava swallowed. Her hands trembled slightly. The final lines came. Simple. Honest. Beautiful in their restraint. I don't expect anything from you. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanted you to know. I'm finally doing the work. Silence filled the room. Ava stared at the screen. Emotion moved through her slowly. No chaos. No emotional collapse. Just quiet feeling. Then the last line. The one that touched her most. I hope you're happy. Truly happy. Ava closed her eyes briefly, then exhaled. A small smile touched her lips. Because this message felt different, not like old Daniel. Old Daniel would have wanted control. An answer. A result. This Daniel asked for nothing. That mattered a lot. After a minute, Ava typed back. Simple. Honest. True. I'm glad you're doing the work, Daniel. Keep going. She paused. Then added one final line. I'm learning too. She stared at the message. Then pressed send. A few seconds later, 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. No reply came. And, strangely, that felt right. No over-explaining. No unnecessary words. Just honesty. Just truth. Just 2 people finally meeting each other without illusions. That afternoon, Ava sat at her favorite cafe after brunch. Warm sunlight streamed through the windows. She sipped tea quietly while reading. Peaceful. Grounded. Then the bell above the door chimed. Ava looked up and froze. Daniel. He stopped too. Both stared. Surprised. Neither expected this. He looked different. Subtle changes. Less polished. Less guarded. Still Daniel. But softer somehow. More present. More real. For one quiet moment, neither moved. Then Daniel gave a small, uncertain smile. Ava studied him. Then smiled back. Small. Warm. Real. Daniel walked closer. Slowly. Respectfully. He stopped at a comfortable distance. Hi. Ava's voice remained soft. Hi. Silence. Not awkward. Just quiet. Daniel glanced at the empty chair. Then back at her. May I? Ava looked at him for a moment. Then nodded. Yes. Daniel sat. Neither rushed to speak. No need. No performance. No pretending. Just 2 people sitting in truth. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. You look well. Ava smiled faintly. So do you. Daniel laughed softly. Therapy is humbling. Ava almost laughed. Good. Daniel smiled. And for the first time in years, it reached his eyes. A real smile. Not the polished CEO smile. The old Daniel smile. Warm. Human. Ava noticed. And something inside her softened. Not into reconciliation. Not yet. Into possibility. Quiet possibility. Nothing more. Nothing less. They talked. Not about fixing the past. Not about rewriting history. Just life. Growth. Healing. Truth. Simple things. Real things. And as sunlight filled the cafe, something gentle settled between them. Not old love. Not yet. Something quieter. Healthier. Honest. A foundation built not on memory. Because sometimes love doesn't return as passion. Sometimes it returns as understanding. As friendship. As grace. As a second chance, earned slowly. And sometimes, healing doesn't mean people come back together. Sometimes healing simply means 2 people finally see each other clearly. As Ava watched Daniel speak, one truth settled quietly in her heart. She didn't know what the future held. Maybe this was just closure. Maybe it was a new beginning. Maybe it was something in between. But for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of not knowing. And that felt like peace. Real peace. Outside, Chicago moved like always. Busy. Restless. Alive. Inside the small cafe, 2 people sat across from each other, no longer trapped by memory. No longer defined by old wounds. Just present. Just honest. Just human. And somehow, that felt like enough. Sometimes love doesn't fail because feelings disappear. Sometimes love fails because presence disappears. Because communication fades. Because emotional safety is lost. Because people stop making each other feel seen. Love is not just about saying, I love you. Love is showing up, listening, choosing each other again and again. And perhaps the deepest lesson of all is this. Success means nothing if you lose yourself or the people you love while chasing it. Thank you for watching this story. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Love Stories by Mr. Johnson for more powerful emotional stories with life-changing lessons. And tell me in the comments, do you believe Daniel and Ava deserve a second chance? Or was closure enough?